The late afternoon sun spilled through the dusty windows of Malik's small dojo, streaking the worn tatami mats with strips of fading gold. The place smelled faintly of old wood and sweat, a humble sanctuary where he taught self-defense to anyone who could pay a modest fee, and sometimes those who couldn't. In one corner sat his 8-year-old daughter, Layla, bent over her homework, humming softly to herself. She was the reason Malik had kept going all these years, working long nights as a security guard and teaching martial arts by day just to keep a roof over their heads. The day had been quiet until the dojo's heavy wooden door creaked open. A tall figure stepped inside, his presence instantly shifting the air. Malik looked up and nearly froze. Standing before him was Ryuichi Sato, billionaire philanthropist, legendary martial artist, and 8th Dan Aikido master, the kind of man who filled magazine covers and stadiums when he demonstrated his art. Dressed in an immaculate suit that seemed out of place against the dojo's humble walls, Ryuichi's dark eyes scanned the room before settling on Malik. "I've heard stories about you," he said in a deep, measured tone. "A man who never loses, even against opponents stronger and faster. I want to see for myself." Malik raised an eyebrow, setting down the bamboo sword he'd been holding. "You want to spar with me?" The billionaire nodded once. Layla peeked over her notebook, her eyes wide with curiosity. Malik studied the man before him, his stance calm yet unshakable, his gaze steady. It was an unusual request. Men like Ryuichi didn't wander into small dojos on side streets. There was always a reason, a motive beneath the surface. A slow smirk tugged at the corner of Malik's lips as he replied, "Only if you promise not to cry." The words hung in the air like a playful jab, and Layla stifled a giggle. To Malik's surprise, Ryuichi's lips curved into a faint smile. Without a word, he removed his suit jacket, revealing a perfectly pressed GI beneath, as if he had planned for this moment. Malik felt the subtle shift, the match ahead wasn't just about skill. It was a test, a conversation between two men who spoke the same language without words. And something told him that when it was over, life as he knew it might never be the same. The mats whispered beneath their bare feet as Malik and Ryuichi stepped into position, facing each other with a respectful bow. The air in the small dojo seemed heavier now, charged with unspoken challenge. Malik's posture was relaxed but alert, shoulders loose, eyes sharp. He had fought men who came in swinging like storms and others who moved with the calm precision of a scalpel, but Ryuichi was something different, stillness wrapped around coiled energy, like a tiger waiting to strike. The first movement was his, a smooth, almost effortless step forward into a Shihanage attempt, testing Malik's balance. Malik pivoted sharply, slipping inside the arc of the throw, his palm pressing against Ryuichi's forearm to redirect the momentum. Their eyes locked for a split second, each reading the other like an open book. Malik's style, forged from street fights and years of teaching students who couldn't afford to lose in real life, was raw but deeply intelligent. He blended traditional technique with an unpredictable edge, striking where an opponent didn't expect. Ryuichi's approach was pure mastery, each motion minimal yet devastatingly effective. The room was silent except for the sound of feet gliding across the tatami and Layla's quiet intake of breath every time the men closed distance. Malik ducked under a swift arm lock, sweeping Ryuichi's leg in a move that could have toppled a lesser fighter. But Ryuichi turned the fall into a graceful roll, springing back to his feet without missing a beat. There was no arrogance in his movements, no wasted motion, only the respect of one warrior meeting another on equal ground. Sweat began to bead on Malik's forehead, but he kept his breathing steady, watching, adjusting, waiting. Then, almost imperceptibly, Ryuichi's mouth curved into a smile. He wasn't here to dominate, he was here to measure, to understand. Malik realized the spar had shifted, this wasn't about proving who was stronger. It was a silent conversation about values, discipline, and the will to protect. When they finally stopped, neither man had thrown the other, both locked in a draw. They bowed once more, chest heaving, the weight of mutual respect settling between them. Ryuichi straightened, his voice quiet but deliberate. "You're wasted in this place," he said. Come work with me. Malik stood still, unsure if the man was offering a job, a challenge, or something far more life-changing. They sat cross-legged on the worn tatami, the room still heavy with the echo of their spar. Layla plopped down between them, sipping from her juice box as if two grown men hadn't just been testing each other with the intensity of tigers circling in a cage. Ryuichi broke the silence first, his voice deep but calm. I don't waste time with empty fights. I came here for a reason. Malik raised an eyebrow, waiting. The billionaire continued, I run a global initiative, self-defense training for civilians, police, aid workers. We go to places where safety is a luxury, where the untrained pay the price. I want you to join me. Not as a student, as my equal. Malik chuckled lightly, leaning back on his hands. You flew across the world, challenged me in my own dojo, just to offer me a job. Ryuichi smiled faintly. Not a job. A mission. His gaze was steady, the kind that made Malik feel as though the man could see straight into his chest. You fight with instinct, with creativity. That can't be taught. And you don't fight for ego, you fight to protect. That's rare. Malik's mind was already racing. The offer was more than tempting. It was a chance to step into a bigger world, to make an impact far beyond this little dojo. But it would mean leaving behind the life he had fought so hard to build, moving Layla into unfamiliar territory, trusting a man he'd met less than an hour ago. Why me? He asked finally. Ryuichi leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Because you remind me of myself, before I had the money, the influence, the stage. You understand that martial arts aren't about breaking bones, they're about protecting lives. Layla looked up at her father, her eyes bright. Daddy, you could help so many people, she whispered. The words landed heavier than any strike Malik had taken in the ring. He thought about all the nights he'd told her that strength was about more than winning, it was about doing what was right. And now, maybe, it was time to live that lesson himself. Malik didn't answer immediately, but the set of his jaw told Ryuichi that his silence was not a no, it was the weight of a decision forming. 2 weeks later, Malik stood barefoot on the gleaming hardwood floor of a vast training hall in Tokyo, the air rich with the scent of polished wood and the distant hum of anticipation. Rows of students from across the globe knelt in crisp white GIs, their eyes fixed on the front of the room. Layla sat among a small group of children, laughing softly as they traded origami animals, the sound a gentle reminder of why Malik was here. His own GI felt foreign yet familiar, embroidered with his name in black thread beside Ryuichi's, a symbol of partnership he hadn't yet fully grasped. As he adjusted his belt, Ryuichi approached, his expression calm but his presence commanding. Remember, he murmured, today isn't about proving who's strongest. It's about showing them what strength really is. Malik nodded, feeling the weight of the moment settle into his bones. When they bowed to each other, the entire hall seemed to hold its breath. Their spar began not with aggression, but with a fluid exchange of technique, Malik's adaptive, street-tempered instincts blending seamlessly with Ryuichi's refined precision. Every throw, every counter was deliberate, a lesson in trust and control. The students watched in rapt silence, the demonstration more like a graceful dance than a fight. Near the end, Ryuichi shifted his stance, leaving an opening. Malik didn't hesitate, he took it, executing a clean throw that sent the billionaire rolling smoothly across the mat. Gasps rippled through the hall, but Ryuichi rose with a grin, raising Malik's hand for all to see. This, he declared to the audience, is my partner. Together, we will teach the world that true strength is the courage to protect. The room erupted in applause, but Malik's eyes found only one face, Layla's, glowing with pride. In that moment, every doubt he'd carried dissolved. He realized that by stepping into this new life, he wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was building a legacy for his daughter, a future where she could see the kind of man her father had chosen to become. Ryuichi leaned closer, a playful glint in his eyes. Not bad for a man who told me not to cry. Malik laughed quietly, the sound warm and certain. This was only the beginning.